What's up, everybody? I'm Coach Tyler with Fencer's Edge, and today we are going to be working on different footwork techniques you can use to fool or trick your opponent. All right, so this is going to be kind of like feinting with the feet. We're going to be going over some aggressive attacking footwork that you can use to trick and fool your opponent, as well as some defensive footwork that you can use to fool your opponent and get them to react a certain way. All right, so the first footwork trick that we're going to work on today is the balestra. And the balestra is going to be an offensive trick that you can use to help make your opponent commit to making a parry. All right, so it's going to be an aggressive action that makes it seem to your opponent that you're launching an attack, and then you can disengage or make a feint or even press and continue a little bit deeper with your attack if they're trying to pull distance. All right, so let's break down the balestra. So from the unguard position, we're going to kind of hop forward and pull your back leg underneath while you're landing on the toe of the front foot. So again, it's hop, and then you either fire for a lunge, or you can continue to press and change to an advance and lunge afterwards. All right? So the key aspects to making the balestra are, number one is making sure that you're jumping more forward than you are jumping up in the air. Okay? So the next key aspect to the balestra is I'm going to pull my back leg up underneath me. So my unguard position is here. When I land for the balestra, I'm kind of pulling this back foot up closer. This is going to give me more distance with my lunge, and it's going to get me a little bit closer to my opponent than it seems like to them. All right, so the next important part of the balestra is landing on the toe of this front foot. When I land on the toe, I'm kind of making a popping noise with my foot, and that noise is also meant to draw a strong reaction from my opponent. So the other important part of the balestra is when you land for the balestra, you're going to sink down nice and low. When you sink down low, it gives the appearance of making a lunge. So when I make my lunge, you'll notice my upper body drops. I sink down lower, right? So we want to give that same impression with this balestra. So when I land, I'm kind of dropping and sinking down low. This gives the impression to my opponent that I'm launching my lunge. It also gives me a lot of power in my legs. All right, the more bent down I am on these legs, the more explosive I can be with my finish, either with just a lunge or continuing it into another advance or multiple advances. So the next key aspect to the balestra is the front foot. You'll notice that when I make the balestra, I'm kind of kicking my front foot and then pulling it back. All right? This kick of the front foot is meant to look just like a lunge. So when I lunge, I'm kicking my front foot forward. When I'm making the balestra, I'm also kicking that front foot forward. So it looks like I'm initiating the final aspect of my attack, and it will draw my opponent to either react with a parry or to try and pull me short. All right, so the next footwork trick that we're going to go over is the skip. All right, now the skip is very similar to the balestra, except for my front foot is not going to land on the ground. So the skip is hop, boom. Okay, so I'm going to lift my foot as if I was making a lunge, and then progress that a little bit further forward with that skip or that hop with the back foot. All right, and again, I can either make the skip and go directly into the lunge, or I can make the skip and extend with another advance. The key aspect here is when you want to transition from that skip to an advance is making it look really smooth. You don't want to skip land hard and then continue, because that can be seen to the referee as you making 2 attacks. Your first attack fails, and then you're initiating a remise or a redoublement. So we want to make that transition nice and smooth by landing on the heel of the foot as you transition. Another key aspect of the skip is lifting the toe and the front foot as if you were making a lunge, right? So I don't want to pull my back foot back. I want to kick it forward as if I'm initiating a lunge, all right? And again, that action is going to make it look like to your opponent that you are initiating your final attack, which will draw them to either make a parry or try to pull you short. And you can feint or disengage around and finish to a different target, or extend the attack a little bit further if they're trying to pull you short. All right, so the next 2 footwork feints are more to try and make the distance wider when you are on the attack. So both of these next 2 are attacking footworks, and they're meant to make the distance get wider between you and your opponent. So maybe you don't want to finish, you want to be patient and push them all the way to the end of the strip and then commit to making your final attack. But sometimes your opponent is too close and in your face, and you want to build that distance in between you so you have more room to work and build an attack, right? So the first footwork feint of this type of trying to build the distance is going to be the skitter step, all right? So I could be moving nice and smooth and then make small skitters, all right? Now, or small fast advances. Now the key here is you don't want to step really big. You want to keep those steps really small, but you want to add kind of like an aggressive initiation of that. So it gets them to back up quickly, and it will help you build the space in between you and your opponent, okay? So again, the skitter step, moving smoothly, pressing, and then building that distance, all right? Now the key thing that you want to look out for here is when you make that skitter step, if your opponent is searching for a counter time where they're trying to counterattack you, you want to be ready to finish when you're making that skitter step, right? So if I'm pressing and I make that skitter step, I want to be ready to finish immediately if my opponent doesn't buy that feint and they counterattack in, all right? But most of the time your opponent will try to accelerate. When they see you speeding up, they're going to try and speed up their retreat as well, and you can kind of slow back down. So you're speeding up without gaining a whole lot of distance forward, which is going to help you build that space in between you and your opponent. You can even start slow, skitter, and then slow back down to help make that distance wider. All right, so the next footwork, I like to call it the slide and stop or the slide and check footwork. So again, this footwork, I'm using it to help kind of build distance and keep the distance wider between me and my opponent. And also with this footwork, I'm trying to bait my opponent to make a counterattack, right? And when they make that counterattack, depending on the timing of the counterattack, I can either just finish, I can make a parry, or I can back up out of the way and make their counterattack fall short and then punish them for their mistake, all right? So the stop check footwork or the slide check footwork is a little bit more complicated. And basically what I'm doing is trying to build a rhythm and a tempo and then suddenly break that rhythm and tempo. Okay, I'm also trying to bait them to counterattack because I will be stopping during my progression down the strip. So that's one thing that you need to be aware of, is that with each stop in foil and in saber, you're giving away your right of way, all right? But as long as you start your next advance before your opponent counterattacks in, you will still maintain the right of way. All right? So just to give you an example, so the slide check footwork would look like this. All right? All right, so I would build that rhythm, and then at some point I would break that rhythm and finish my attack. Or I would successfully bait them to counterattack, and I would either finish if they're counterattacking late, right? So after I've initiated my next step forward, I can finish. Or if they're initiating their counterattack in time, I can make a parry and repose. Or with this kind of step back, that check, when they counterattack, I can pull short and then punish them for the mistake. So again, here and step back. So I'm trying to draw my opponent to make that counterattack. If they don't counterattack in time, then I'm pushing again forward. So what I'm doing for this is I'm transferring my weight to the front leg and kind of skipping forward, landing both feet on the ground at the same time. So it's kind of, I'm sliding my feet and making a stop. And then I'll step back with the back foot. And again, push, stop, and check. Push, stop, and check. All right? And again, you can try to build a tempo and then break that tempo and finish when your opponent is indecision of whether or not they want to counterattack or back up. All right, so the next footwork is more about the tempo or the timing of the steps, and not necessarily about different footwork tricks that you can use. You're basically using a tempo change to make the feint to get your opponent to react a certain way. So this one is going to be a slow march into a fast march, into an abrupt stop, and then an explosive finish. All right? So what I'm trying to do here is lull my opponent with a slow march, and then I accelerate to get them to accelerate and match that tempo, and then I stop, and I wait for them to stop as well, and the second they stop, I initiate and explode with a fast attack, all right? It's going to be harder for them to go from fast to stop and then fast again, and it's really hard for them to get out of the way of that tempo change. Okay, so I'll demonstrate it here. I'll build slow, accelerate, stop, and then accelerate again and finish. All right, so it's playing with the tempo changes and accelerating and decelerating very quickly and sharply. All right, so the next couple feints, feinting footwork that you can use are going to be defensive feints, all right? So how to trick your opponent on the defense, all right? And the first one is going to be a fake counterattack or a false counterattack. I'm going to try and trick my opponent into thinking that I'm counterattacking and getting them to finish their attack or to search for a parry, and depending on which action they take is how I will react to that, okay? So the fake counterattack, I am going to step in place with my front foot, all right? So just lifting and stomping. So I want to create a little bit of a noise here. Again, that noise is going to be a thing that tries to draw the reaction from my opponent, okay? So I'm not going to be stepping forward. I'm going to be stepping in place, and I'm going to sink down on this front leg and give like a little bit of a shoulder check and a hand extension, okay? So boom, I'm gonna fake that counterattack, and whether or not they finish, I can back up and parry repose, or if I get them to stop moving and search for a parry, then I can disengage and take over the attack, okay? And if they don't react to this feint at all, and they keep pressing forward, I can change it to a real counterattack and close them out. Okay, so you kind of have three options off of that fake, all right? Also, after the fake, you can switch to fast retreats and get back. You can also fake and cross over to get back if you need to get a lot of distance quickly. But that fake is meant to draw your opponent to make a reaction, okay? And I'm drawing that by sinking down because, again, that makes it look like I'm attacking or lunging in because my body sinks down. It also makes my legs very strong and ready to make a big, fast reaction. If I'm straight-legged, I'm going to be slower and I have less balance, so I want to really sit down deep with that fake. And the next part is kind of giving a shoulder and arm pump as well. Now, I'm not going to fully extend my arm with that fake. I'm just going to give like a little 80% extension and a little bit of a shoulder dip to try and draw my opponent to finish their attack when I want them to, or to stop and search for a parry, or to ignore it and then I'll catch them with a real counterattack. All right, and so the last one that we're going to go over today is going to be a fake retreat counterattack, okay? So I'm going to step back on my back leg, making it look like I'm retreating, and then I'll counterattack forward and catch my opponent in preparation. For this action, I want to be sure that I'm not transferring my weight all the way to the back leg, right? So when I do this half step, I'm not transferring my weight to that back leg. I'm keeping the weight over my front leg when I make that fake counter, or that fake retreat, I'm sorry. So again, it's here, then the arm should shoot, and then the front leg can follow with the lunge. And depending on how you're trying to close out, you can make that and step behind and get your body out of the way to try and make their finish be less successful. But yeah, so I could be making my retreats, make a fake retreat, and then counterattack in, all right? So it's kind of a half step with the back foot and then counterattacking forward. All right, everybody, that does it for this video. I hope you found this information helpful, and I hope it helps you fool your opponent and get that winning touch. If you have any questions about any of these footworks, please put them down in the comments below. I read all of your comments. I don't necessarily have time to reply to every single one of them, but I really do appreciate all of your comments and suggestions. I also want to give a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters out there. You guys make this channel possible. I couldn't do it without all of your support, so thank you so much. If you haven't already, please check out my Patreon page and consider supporting this channel. Any amount that you can contribute will greatly help me produce more awesome fencing content for you. Until next time, guys, have fun, work hard, and practice.